Well, good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon's broadcast of the Logos Experiment. I'm your host, Don Hood. I have the distinct privilege of being the pastor of the River Church of Asheville, located at 930 Swannanoa River Road over in East Asheville. And I just want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for taking your time to be with us and share some of your time with us. This is Logos Experiment is designed to be a live call-in show. So certainly, if you have a question about either the material we talk about, or maybe you just got another question that you would like answered, I'll be glad to do my very best to answer the question. Feel free to call us 505-2806, 505-2806. You can also email your questions to the River Asheville, all one word, the River Asheville at gmail.com. All right, well, we opened up a can of worms last week, and I'm going to see if I can close it up just a little bit. I won't be able to answer all of the questions pertaining to it, but hopefully at least get some thought process going. We have spent a few weeks now talking about end of 2012, end of quote, end of the world scenarios, and I kind of opened a can of worms, brought up a scenario, started it last week that is being perpetrated by a lot of folks here lately, and that is the thought that in 2012 we will meet for the first time. We will meet extraterrestrial life forms. The whole UFO thing and extraterrestrial life forms, and they're going to make their appearance in 2012. Again, that's a thought process that's being perpetrated by an awful lot of people. And I made the suggestion last week, or gave maybe encouraged is a better word, encouraged everyone out there to, open their head a little bit. Let's think about this, and let's talk about this in light of the Word and in light of what we know to currently be going on. There are three basic questions that if you are going to buy into the whole UFO thing, that you're going to have to buy into. And the first is whether or not these things are real. And we talked last week, and I made mention of the fact that the whole UFO phenomenon appears, at least on the surface, to be very real. There have been millions and millions of sightings, literally. Some of the most famous people in the world, astronauts, heads of state, and different people have all claimed to have had encounters with unidentified flying objects. The second question is, if we're going to be open-minded enough to say, well, they are real, the second question that we have to ask is, who or what are they? And that's kind of where we got into a little bit last week, and I'll just kind of race through this, and if you've got a question, feel free to call. I'll do what I can to answer it. I take the position, first of all, that the UFO phenomena is real. I do not take the position that they are from another planet. I think that there are some things that have gone on the last few years that seem to lend themselves to the fact that whoever these things, this phenomena is, it likely is not from another planet. One thing is the apparent violation, if you will, of the laws of physics that these supposed aircraft perform. Turning at a severe 90-degree or even a 180-degree turn at 15,000 to 25,000 miles per hour, most people agree is beyond what we physically can understand, what physically is known to be able to happen. Lately, in the last few years, the phenomenon has taken a kind of a different turn, in that now there's a lot of discussion about whether or not these supposed spacecraft are metaphysical. In other words, not physical at all. And that's a fancy new word for supernatural. If you don't want something to be supernatural, then we make it metaphysical. And so there's a lot of discussion now as to whether or not this phenomena might actually be something other than physical. And I want you to know that's kind of where I come down. I think this is a supernatural phenomena. I don't think it is physical. The sheer mathematics don't work. There are, just as an example, there are untold millions of planets that can be seen via the telescope and the naked eye. Just millions of them. None of them that we know of can inhabit life except Earth. There's no mysterious planet out there hidden by clouds or anything of that nature that lends itself to life, as far as we can see. Now, when we say that, as far as we can see backwards several light years, millions of light years, so that if there were creatures that had the ability to travel from a planet that we can't see to our planet, they would be millions of years in the air. I mean, the generations would have to pass away on this spacecraft. Not very likely. Matter of fact, the odds of that are incredibly high that could ever happen. The other common thought process is that they're interdimensional, where they literally go from one dimension to another, and or travel through wormholes and black holes and those sorts of things. Well, the problem with that is, mathematically and even as we observe, none of those things have ever been observed. As far as a wormhole, there's been some things that have been photographed. There's been some things talked about that could be wormholes, but nobody seems to know for sure. Interdimensional travel, never been proven that there are other dimensions, and if there are, that we can travel in and out of them. Does my saying that make that not true? No, absolutely not. I am not a scientist, and I'm not a mathematician. but I think just as reasonable human beings, some of the things that we have believed in the past about who and what these UFOs might be don't hold water. And the more we get into this, the more we understand that some of our thinking in the past has been polluted by the media and other people that seem to want to pass on to us their vast knowledge that they may or may not possess. I want to read a verse of Scripture to you that a lot of people read, and especially in talking about the latter days, and we are talking kind of about the last days, 2012. The Spirit speaks expressly that in the last days some shall depart the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and the doctrines of devils. Now, I'm going to make a bold statement. Some of you will buy it, some of you won't, and that's perfectly okay. I believe that the supposed UFO alien encounters are more closely identified with demonic possession than they are with extraterrestrial possession. They seem to mimic what we understand is demonic, meaning of devils. And it is stated here in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1, that the last days would be characterized by doctrines coming from demons. I don't know, what that means. I know what it says, but I'm not sure what it means. It says that they will speak lies and hypocrisy, and it goes on down the list there. I personally believe that they are demonic. And you say, well, why do you say that? Well, a couple of things. One is what I said earlier. I don't see any other evidence of anybody's offered any real evidence that they come from other planets or interdimensional for that matter. That's the first thing. The second reason is, as I said before, and we can go to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and we can discover that people who were demonically possessed in the scriptural days, their symptoms really fit some of the supposed encounters, if you will, with aliens. And the third reason that I think that that I personally believe that they may indeed be, rather than otherworldly, that they may actually be demonic, is their message. Their message is not one of encouragement to the Christian faith. Typically, it is discouraging to the Christian faith. It is anti-Christ, anti-Christian, anti-God. It's more of lends itself more to a New Age thinking than it does to Christian thinking. Their message is one of evolution and evolutionary thought, that it's time for the earth to and the inhabitants, which would be us, to move into this new evolution. And I don't think Scripture supports evolution in any way, shape, or form. So their message also tells me that they may be demonic. The other part of their message that we should take note of is that I don't know of a single case, maybe you do. If you do, please call us and let us know. We'd like to know a single case of anyone who claimed to have been abducted by aliens that ever converted to Christ. They typically, after being abducted, their whole thinking moves away from Christian thought or thoughts of a God to whom they're accountable to, and moves to a more otherworldly type of scenario. So again, part of their message being anti-God, Antichrist. Now, the close encounters of the third and quote fourth time is something that we're seeing more of. The abductee are claiming more. You're seeing more and more people claiming to be abducted. Their claims are, while they differ quite a bit, their claims remarkably are very similar in that the beings seem to be very similar. You have the small grays, the large grays, you have the humanoid nomadics, you have the reptile lizard people, all kinds of, there's like 4 or 5 different types that, but my point being is that they are very similar even though there is a wide variety. There seems to be a fascination, if you will, with reproductive, whether it's the reproductive organs or just reproduction in general, seems to be a common thing. Now, when we get into this whole subject, as wild as it might be, when people, and if you've seen the movie recently, The Fourth Kind, you have seen a compilation in that movie of what a lot of paranormal parapsychologists have compiled in that movie, what they're seeing more of. And I think if you're honest, you have to, and I'm not saying the movie is spot on, but at least the general information in the movie may be close. And if we're going to admit that that these folks are experiencing something, I think that we can be we can be willing to admit that what they're telling us is, again, more like demonic possession instead of being abducted, taken to a spacecraft, and that sort of thing. There are several folks out there that have written some pretty compelling books on their experiences. The first really recorded case of alien abduction was in 1961 with a couple in California who were supposedly taken and abducted. Their experience mirrors the experiences of the 1990s, the start of the 21st century. Kind of interesting that the same thing has been going on for all these many years. One person who has been very outspoken in his beliefs as to what has happened to him is a gentleman named Whitley Strieber. Now, Whitley wrote a book and subsequently became a movie called Communion. And if you watched the movie, you saw what he believed happened to him, that he was abducted and tests were run on him and all kinds of crazy things happened to him. And he continues, even at this time, to be visited by these quote, end quote, aliens. He has written a book called Transformation, or Transformed, I think it is. Transformation, that's it. That is a step beyond, and it is fiction, but it's a step beyond his experience in the book Communion. And let me just read some of these quotes, and you see what you think. And I'll get to him in here in just a second. I'm just going to read some quotes till I get to him. John Ankenberger says that the UFO phenomena simply does not behave like extraterrestrial visitors. It actually molds itself in order to fit whatever culture it's operating in. Jacques Vallée said human beings are under the control of a strange force that bends them in absurd ways, forcing them to play a role in a bizarre game of deception. Arthur C. Clarke said that one theory that we can no longer take seriously is that UFOs are interstellar spaceships. So he says we just can't take that seriously anymore. Lynn Catto, a large part of the available UFO literature is closely linked with mysticism and the metaphysical. It deals with subjects like mental telepathy, automatic writing, invisible entities, as well as phenomena like poltergeist manifestations and possession. Many of the UFO reports now being published in the popular press recount alleged incidents that are strikingly similar to demonic possession and psychic phenomenon. UFO manifestations, John Keel, seem to be, by and large, merely a minor variation on the age-old demonic possession. Let's see here. Let me get down to our friend John Ankenberger. These entities are clever enough to make Stryber think that they care about him. Yet his torment by them never ceases. Whatever his relationship is to the entities, he increasingly concludes their involvement with him is something good. He also remains terrified. Now, he's speaking of Whitley Strieber. Excuse me, I keep saying Schreiber, but Strieber. And I want you to hear what Whitley Strieber says. I became entirely given over to extreme dread. The fear was so powerful that it seemed to make my personality completely evaporate. Whitley ceased to exist. What was left was a body and a state of raw fear so great that it swept about me like a thick, suffocating curtain, turning paralysis into a condition that seemed close to death. I died and a wild animal appeared in my place. Increasingly, I felt as if I were entering a struggle that might even be more than life and death. It might be a struggle for my soul, my essence, or whatever part of me that might have reference to the eternal. There are worse things than death, I suspect. So far, the word demon had never been spoken among the scientists and doctors who were working with me. Alone at night, I worried about the legendary cunning of demons. At the very least, I was going stark, raving mad. I wondered if I might not be in the grip of demons, if they were not making me suffer for their own purpose or simply for their enjoyment. I felt absolutely indescribable sense of menace. It was hell on earth to be there in the presence of these entities, and yet I couldn't move, I couldn't cry out, I couldn't get away. I'd lay as still as death, suffering agonies. Whatever there was seemed so monstrously ugly, so filthy and dark and sinister. Of course they were demons. They had to be, and they were here, and I couldn't get away. I could go on and read some more of not just him, but of other folks that have recently come out of the closet, if you will, to reveal what their encounters were like. Their encounters are not good. Their encounters are they are very demonic. These creatures don't hide their evil. They don't hide their menace. Certainly, there are those of you out there that probably know stories of good aliens and good encounters, but I have to tell you that they are the exception. The rule is very much different. These folks are tormented to the point of a new branch of counseling and therapy is becoming more and more prevalent in our society, and it deals specifically with the therapeutic treatment of people who have been abducted or quote unquote abducted. I'm not going to belabor that anymore and talk about that anymore. I mean, I could, and we could get into some discussion about that, but time to move on. And as we move on from that into other scenarios for 2012, there are a bunch of them out there. There really are. The whole UFO thing, the whole entity thing, the whole, is just another one of many attempts by men to fit their lifestyle and what they suspect is going to happen and their philosophy of the end of life into a box. I want to be very clear as we close. There is no evidence in the Bible, none, that the world is going to end in 2012. There is no evidence scripturally that any of these scenarios will indeed happen. There is no evidence that, again, there are extraterrestrials out there from other planets. None. There's no biblical evidence for that at all. But what there is biblical evidence of is that sooner or later, this world is going to end. Now, it might be in 2012. If it does, I believe it would be a coincidence. But this world is going to end. Before it ends, I believe that believers are going to be taken out of the way. And those that are not believers are going to be left behind. And it's those people that I would like to appeal to, that it's time to get your house in order. If you have put God on the back burner, I plead with you to reach out to me or another local church pastor and talk with them about who God is, what He's wanting out of you, and what He expects from you. You're going to be very surprised to find that God loves you and He has a great plan for you that fits into His plan for the ages. And I just want to appeal to you on that basis. I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us this afternoon. If you care to, we have a Bible study tonight, 7 o'clock at Atlanta Bread Company, Hendersonville Road. Feel free to call us at 348-4703 or reach us on the internet at theriverasheville@gmail.com. Thank you very much for you tuning into the Logos Experiment.